asked the kid I was watching, "What do you think is out there in the fields?" He responded with, "The tall neighbor." I had been taking whatever babysitting jobs I could find all autumn to pay for my textbooks. At first, I just asked around campus if any professors or grad students needed someone to watch their kids for the evening. I started out watching kids in familiar apartment complexes, but eventually I needed more hours. So, I put an ad up on a local community board. It wasn't long until I got a message. The family lived way out past the county line. What bothered me immediately was how close their property was to the massive stretches of dying cornfields, and the fact that there wasn't another house in sight. I got a bit freaked out at first, considering they were strangers living in a renovated farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, but I pushed through the anxiety for the cash. The house was surprisingly modern inside, clean and open, with a large wraparound porch that backed right up to the edge of the crops. They had string lights hung up on the back deck and a small fire pit near the edge of the property. The living room had a massive picture window that faced the fields directly. During the afternoon, the room was bathed in golden sunlight. The kitchen was right next to it, with an island counter facing another huge window surrounded by hanging plants and generic wooden signs. Upstairs, they only had 3 rooms. The guest room was a small space at the end of the hall, and its window faced the fields too. The kid was pretty quiet. Honestly, I neither liked nor disliked him. I tried to figure out his personality, but he just didn't stand out in any way. He wasn't misbehaving or difficult, but he wasn't particularly friendly either. He must have been around 5 or 6 years old, so I just put him to bed quickly and then snooped around the house. I've always been curious about the people who hire me, and I know it's not exactly polite, but I would just go through people's stuff whenever I felt incredibly bored in a quiet house. It must have been around midnight when I slowly pulled open one of the drawers in the hallway console table. This one had all types of random junk: spare keys, old receipts, batteries, and loose change. This family clearly had a designated junk drawer, and I liked looking through it. As I was examining a heavy antique silver pocket lighter, I moved around a bit, noticing how the moonlight from the window at the end of the hall caught the engraved metal. I debated whether I could just take it. Would they even notice it was gone? My chest tightened and my mouth opened slightly. The lighter was no longer catching the moonlight because a huge shadow had covered it, dancing across the silver surface. Looking around in a panic, I noticed the shadow was taking up half the hallway floor. I could not make out the silhouette or what could have possibly cast it. It just seemed so completely unexpected that fear crept up my spine and froze me in place. Someone was at the window at the end of the hall. I knew it could have been a large bird or a stray dog jumping up. That was the rational explanation, and I could have solved all this doubt by simply looking up. But I didn't, because what if it wasn't a bird? I stood completely still for so long, not knowing what to do, until the shadow finally passed and the lighter was illuminated by the moonlight once again. I breathed a massive sigh of relief and put the lighter back in the drawer. I didn't know it at the time, but that was my first contact with it. Something made me stop snooping around and just get back downstairs. I turned on the television and curled up on the sofa. At one point during the long night, I heard a distinct creaking coming from upstairs. I know it shouldn't have freaked me out as badly as it did, but I was still so on edge that I had to go check it out. The house was dark and quiet, and the door to the master bedroom was shut. The door to the kids' room was wide open. Empty. Where did the kid go? Arthur? My voice pierced the heavy silence, and I felt like an intruder destroying the quiet of the house. Arthur, where did you go? I kept having this awful feeling that I was being watched. I turned around, fixated on the door to the guest room at the end of the hall, which was now cracked open. My instincts kept screaming at me to just run down the stairs and leave, but my head, which was now spinning with worst-case scenarios, refused. What if there was an intruder? What if someone had taken Arthur? If I had just looked up at the window when that shadow passed, I would know exactly what I was dealing with now. If I just had the courage to face it then. My voice sounded a lot weaker than the first time, but I still had to try calling out again. "Arthur? Yeah?" The response was almost immediate, coming directly from the dark guest room. Odd. What was he doing in there? I put my hand on the door frame. "What are you doing in here? It's really late. Your parents are going to be home soon." Step after step, I tried to let my eyes adjust to the darkness. The guest room was incredibly dark compared to the hallway, but I could make out a sliver of moonlight that highlighted his tiny silhouette. "Arthur, are you in here? What are you doing? You are really freaking me out." I finally reached him and put my hands on his tiny shoulders, but he didn't even react. He was just staring out the window, looking directly into the fields. "What's going on?" I asked. "What are you looking at?" I stood next to him and stared out the window at the crops. There was a small portion of manicured lawn that extended from the house, abruptly cut off by the towering stalks of dried corn. The further you looked, the denser the stalks seemed to get, until you realized the house was completely engulfed by the fields. Unable to see the horizon because of how tall the crops grew, the field just swallowed the landscape like a massive, textured black ocean blending into the night sky. The window framed this darkness, this suffocating emptiness, perfectly. It made me feel like we were completely cut off from the rest of the world. If we dared to step into those fields, we would just be lost forever. And there Arthur stood, just staring into it. "What are you seeing?" He just wouldn't answer me, so I decided to figure it out for myself. Studying the scenery, nothing really stood out at first. Of course, I just needed to pay closer attention. The longer you looked into the darkness, the more movement you started to see. Field mice, raccoons, even the slight autumn breeze thrilling the dry stalks and leaves. The crops swayed gently in the wind. And then the shadows were the very next thing you noticed. These forever shifting stains on the edge of the lawn. I could have stared out there for hours trying to make sense of the shapes. Maybe that is why Arthur wasn't moving. There is just something hypnotic about the deep night that keeps you awake. "What do you think is out there in the fields?" I asked him, trying to sound playful and relaxed. "Where, in the corn?" "Yeah, the tall neighbor." I blinked a few times. That was incredibly unsettling. I mean, kids say weird things all the time, but why would he give me a specific answer like that? Was he trying to scare me? "What do you mean? What is a tall neighbor?" "Oh, he is the man who waits outside when it gets dark because he doesn't have a house. So he is just hiding out there." "Yeah, but he is hiding because he wants to come inside when everyone is asleep. Just like how bad guys hide before they break in. Or monsters," I added, trying to make light of it to calm myself down. "So, what do you think is out there in the fields?" "The tall neighbor," he responded once again, completely deadpan. My body tensed up immediately. "That's not a funny game. I don't want to play this. Why would you make that up? A tall neighbor? That's just a creepy story and it's not fun anymore." "I'm not making it up." "Okay, let's just go to sleep. There is no tall neighbor out there. I looked out the window and it's just the wind. I don't know what kind of scary videos you watch, but nobody is out there. Your parents are out at a dinner right now, and they are going to come home in a couple of hours. If they find out you are up this late, I am going to get in a lot of trouble for it. Come on, Let's get back to your room. I'm telling the truth." "What is he? A ghost?" "You know, something was standing right outside the window earlier." I didn't really care how defensive I sounded, because in my head, everything still had a logical explanation. Arthur, however, widened his gaze. "Yeah, that was probably him." "Stop. I am completely serious." "And what does he want from us? Does he want to take my toys?" We were back in his bedroom now, and I had tucked him tightly into his bed. I positioned myself so my back was to the window, facing the dark hallway, which had now become significantly creepier than I initially thought. "He doesn't want your toys." "That's good. They are mine anyway. Good night." I tried to stand up and leave the room, but he reached out and grabbed my arm. "Wait, don't leave yet. Look at me." "What is it now?" "I want to tell you about this weird dream I had. This dream that woke me up earlier, but you have to look at me and pay attention." "Okay." So, in my dream, I was playing out on the deck and I was really thirsty, and you were standing there too. And you tried to go back inside, but the sliding glass door was locked and you couldn't get in. And then I found this old broken toy. I really hate when people try to explain their dreams to me, but I sat there listening anyway, facing Arthur with my back directly to his bedroom window. I didn't stay because his story was captivating, and I certainly didn't stay because I felt comfortable. I stayed because while he held my arm, his eyes kept darting nervously to the window right behind my head. I had seen a faint shadow cover his face for a split second because he had demanded I look at him, but in reality, he was trying to make sure I didn't turn around to look at the glass. So, I just sat there and listened until he abruptly finished his rambling story the exact second the moonlight reached his face again. "Thank you for telling me that. It was very interesting." "You're welcome. Good night." "Night." I spent the next 2 hours in the living room downstairs, fidgeting with the television remote. This kid had a lot more nerve than I did. Sitting in the silence, I kept trying to isolate and identify the unfamiliar sounds around the property, but I couldn't. The house had finally settled, and the night had become dreadfully uneventful. His parents arrived shortly after that. I grabbed my backpack and went to the front door to greet them. Was he well behaved? Yeah, he was great. No problems at all. I studied both of them from head to toe. Their coats, their expressions, how they carried themselves. "Did you have a quiet night?" the dad asked me as he paid me. "I hope so," I responded awkwardly. They offered to let me sleep on the couch, but I insisted on taking my car. I closed the front door behind me, but instead of walking straight to my car, I headed around to the side of the house. I just had an overwhelming urge to see something. Stepping carefully through the grass, I walked around to the backyard so I could look up at the second-story windows, hoping to find some logical explanation for the shadow. Anything at all. The siding of the house looked completely normal, and nothing indicated that anything had been standing there. I stood in the dark yard for a while. I really don't know why. The parents had gone upstairs, and Arthur was definitely asleep in his room. I studied the deck from that angle, then the tall wall of cornstalks, which were as quiet as a grave. Then I looked up at the window of the master bedroom where the parents were. After that, I honestly don't remember the drive back to my apartment. I don't even remember unlocking my own front door. I just ran inside frantically until my lungs burned. I didn't scream or stop to take my shoes off. I just ran into my bedroom, locked the door, pulled the blinds shut, and started typing this. Because while I was watching the parents through that window, something horrifying had caught my eye. In their bedroom, what I initially thought was a tall coat rack in the corner moved all of a sudden. It had been standing there so perfectly still, I hadn't even bothered to register it as anything unusual until it stepped out of the shadows and appeared fully in the moonlight. This bony, twisted silhouette dragged itself across the bedroom floor and stood right next to the mother who was sleeping. It looked completely uncanny, like a human who had starved to death, with wide, empty eyes and arms so unnaturally long that they trailed behind it when it walked out. It just stood there in the dark, watching the parents sleep. Then it slowly lifted a pale, bony finger and simply started counting. I stood in the grass frozen, watching this horrific nightmare unfold, forever scarred into my memory. It kept pointing and counting the parents over and over again. I was so terrified to make a sound that I would have stood there watching it forever. It wasn't until something else happened that I finally broke into an exhausting run. It stopped counting, turned its head, and it saw me. My partner had started watching me from places no one should reasonably fit. Behind door frames, beneath tables, between furniture where shadows gathered too tightly. At first, it felt like a joke. Now, it feels like something else entirely. Her name is Alara. We've been together for almost 7 years, married just under a year. Nothing about our life had ever suggested instability or strangeness. If anything, Alara was the most grounded person I knew. Thoughtful, composed, almost overly practical. She disliked surprises, hated loud noises, and couldn't sit through horror films without covering her eyes, which is why what started happening made no sense. It began quietly. About 9 weeks ago, I was getting ready for work in our apartment in Asheville, North Carolina. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a travel mug, already running late. I remember glancing up absent-mindedly and freezing. From the edge of the hallway wall, just past the doorway, I saw her. Only part of her face was visible, one eye, a sliver of cheek, strands of her dark hair falling down the wall like something creeping. She wasn't moving. She was just watching me. I jerked back, nearly spilling hot coffee on myself. Alara, what the hell? The moment I spoke, she disappeared. Not casually stepping away. No, she pulled back abruptly, like a child caught doing something they weren't supposed to. I heard her footsteps retreat quickly toward the living room. At the time, I laughed. It was so unlike her that I figured she was just being playful, maybe trying to shake things up. That explanation didn't last long. 3 nights later, I woke up around 2:30 a.m., thirsty. The apartment was silent in that heavy, suffocating way it sometimes is at night. I went downstairs, barefoot, half asleep. Halfway into the kitchen, I stopped. I didn't hear anything, but I knew I wasn't alone. That feeling, the one that crawls up your spine before your brain can explain it, settled into my chest. I looked down, and there she was. Alara's face was peeking up from the other side of the kitchen island. Her chin rested just below the counter's edge, so only her face was visible. Her eyes were wide open, too wide, and completely fixed on me. She was smiling, not her usual smile. This one stretched unnaturally far, her lips pulled tight as if they didn't quite belong to her anymore. I shouted, loud enough that my voice echoed off the walls. The moment I reacted, she dropped out of sight. Then I heard it. Not footsteps, not exactly. A rapid, uneven scrambling sound. Hands and feet hitting tile as she moved away on all fours, disappearing into the darkness beyond the kitchen. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I went upstairs immediately. When I opened the bedroom door, she was already in bed, lying on her side, still, breathing slow and steady. If she was pretending, she was convincing. The next morning, I confronted her. She looked at me like I'd just described a dream. "What are you talking about?" she asked, frowning slightly. I explained everything. She listened, then laughed. "Guess we're even now," she said lightly. "You've scared me plenty of times." But I hadn't. Not like that. Not even close. After that, it became frequent. She would appear in places where she shouldn't logically be able to hide. Behind the curtain in the living room, just enough fabric pulled back for one eye to peek through. Between the gaps of bookshelves. Once, inside an old cedar chest at the foot of our bed. The lid was barely open, and her face was pressed against the opening, that same stretched smile waiting for me. Every time I reacted, she disappeared instantly. Every time I asked her about it later, she denied it or deflected with humor. But something else started to bother me. Her eyes. They didn't blink. Not when she was watching. 2 weeks passed. Then suddenly, nothing. No more peeking. No more glimpses. It was like it had never happened. I thought it was over. Until one evening, while we were having dinner, I mentioned it casually. She tilted her head and said, almost absent-mindedly, "Maybe I just got better at it." That was the moment I stopped finding any of it funny. A few days ago, things escalated. I was in the shower, trying to shake off the growing unease that had been following me everywhere. The bathroom was filled with steam, the sound of water masking everything else. But then, that same feeling. I wasn't alone. Slowly, I turned toward the shower curtain and saw her. Her head was pushed through a small opening in the curtain, as if she had forced it through from the outside. Her body remained hidden, but her face was inches from me. Her eyes were bloodshot, wide, unblinking. Her mouth hung open in a distorted grin, lips trembling slightly. Dark streaks ran down her cheeks, mascara smeared like tears. She didn't speak, she just stared. Then, without warning, she pulled back. The bathroom door slammed. I stood there for several seconds before realizing I was shaking. I didn't wait. I grabbed whatever clothes I could and left. I drove to my older brother Marcus's house in Greenville. When I told him everything, he didn't laugh. Neither did his wife, Dana. Dana told me something that made my stomach drop. "Alara stopped by this morning," she said. "She asked if you were here." "What did she look like?" I asked. Dana hesitated. "Tired. Like, really tired. Her eyes looked wrong." Marcus insisted we go back together, not to confront her, but to gather my things and figure out what to do next. When we arrived, the house felt off. The lights were out. The air smelled foul, not just stale, rotten. We searched the downstairs first. Nothing. Then the bedroom. Everything looked normal at first glance, until Marcus opened the closet and immediately stepped back. Inside, on the floor, were rows of small, glassy objects. It took me a second to understand what I was looking at. Eyes. Animal eyes. Dozens of them, arranged in pairs, some dried, some still wet. I felt my stomach turn. Marcus swore under his breath. "We need to leave," he said. I nodded. But as we turned, I heard something, a faint rustling, from beneath the bed. I crouched down before Marcus could stop me, and there she was, curled into the darkness, watching us, her face lit with something I can only describe as excitement, like a child on Christmas morning. Her hands trembled, not with fear, with anticipation. "Alara," I said softly. She didn't respond. I reached toward her, and that's when she moved, fast, faster than I thought possible, Her arm shot out, holding something sharp. Glass. A jagged shard. Pain exploded across my hand. I stumbled back, shouting. Blood dripped onto the floor. She didn't smile anymore. Her expression had changed. Her eyes locked onto Marcus, and she made a low, guttural sound, like a predator. Then she began crawling out. Not standing, crawling. Her limbs moved in jerking, unnatural motions as she advanced toward us. Marcus grabbed me, pulling me back. We ran, out of the house, into the car. We didn't stop until we were miles away. I ended up with 11 stitches in my hand, 3 across my back where she'd caught me as I turned. We called the police. They searched the house. She was gone. No sign of forced entry. No sign of where she went. Just gone. I checked into a motel about an hour away. I thought distance would help. I thought I'd have time to think, to figure out what to do. That was a mistake. 40 minutes ago, I got a text. Unknown number. 3 words. I see you. Attached was a photo, taken from outside my motel room door. A close-up, through the peephole. Her eye, wide, unblinking, looking straight in. And the worst part? I didn't try to stop her. Not even once. If anything, I was relieved. I've kept this to myself for over 30 years. I'm an old man now. There's no reason to lie anymore. But before you judge me, you need to understand what my son was. Because he wasn't normal. Not even close. My name is Daniel. My wife, Marin, and I used to live in a quiet coastal town in Oregon. The kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to happen. We wanted a child. We planned for him. We were ready. And when our son Elias was born, everything seemed fine. For about a day. Then the crying started, and it didn't stop. Not for weeks, not for months. For 13 straight months. Doctors said it was colic. They said it would pass. It did, but what came after was worse. Elias didn't grow into a happy toddler. He didn't laugh. He didn't play. He didn't even seem curious. He just watched. Cold, silent, focused. And when he smiled, it wasn't because he was happy. It was because something had gone wrong. Something had broken, or someone had gotten hurt. The first time I noticed it clearly, he was 3 years old. Marin gave him a toy train. He held it, studied it, then smashed it into the floor. Over and over. Plastic snapped, wheels flew off. Then he looked up at me and smiled. That smile? It never changed. As he got older, destruction became his routine. Nothing in the house was safe. If it could be broken, he broke it. If it couldn't, he found a way. Then things got worse, much worse. He started leaving things around the house, not by accident, on purpose. Things we wouldn't find right away, hidden in corners, inside vents, under furniture. He watched how long it took us to notice, and when we did, he smiled. We tried everything. Therapy, medication, specialists. Nothing worked. School couldn't handle him either. He bit other kids, attacked teachers, screamed for hours without stopping. Eventually, they removed him completely. At home, we started installing locks, first on cabinets, then on doors. Eventually, we turned our own house into sections, safe zones, places we could hide from our own son. When he was 10, he stabbed me. No warning, no argument. He just waited until I walked past him, then drove a knife into my side. I still have the scars. He didn't run, he didn't panic. He just stood there, watching, like he was studying what happened next. After that, something inside me broke. I stopped thinking of him as a child. I started thinking of him as something else, something I didn't understand, something I couldn't control. Then came the animals. Cats disappeared. Birds were found mutilated. A neighbor's dog came home with its eye destroyed. We never caught him doing it, but we knew. We always knew. Years passed like that. Fear, locks, silence. And then, something unexpected happened. Marin got pregnant again, and instead of joy, we felt dread. Because we couldn't survive another child like him, we just couldn't. But when our daughter, Lila, was born, everything changed. She smiled, she laughed, she reached for us. She was normal. For the first time in years, our home felt like a home, and without saying it out loud, Marin and I made the same decision. We chose her. Elias noticed, of course he did, and things got worse. By 17, he was out of control. We argued every day, screaming matches that shook the house. Marin refused to be alone with him. We carried keys everywhere, locked doors behind us, lived like prisoners. Then one morning, everything snapped. Lila was asleep in our bedroom, door locked, windows secured. We were in the kitchen when we heard it. A scream. Not a normal cry, pure terror. We ran. The door was still locked, but the window was open. He had climbed in. Elias stood over her crib, holding a knife, a hunting knife. There was blood, not much, but enough. 2 cuts on her arm, shallow, deliberate. He wasn't trying to kill her. He was playing, dragging the blade across her skin, watching her react. Marin moved first. She hit his arm. The knife dropped. Then she shoved him, hard. He flew back into the wall. I grabbed Lila, held her tight. She was shaking, crying, alive. And then I saw Marin step forward. She used to box, years ago, just amateur fights, but she knew how to hit. The first punch snapped his head back. The second dropped him. And I did nothing. I could have stopped her. I could have stepped in, but I didn't. Because for the first time, someone was stopping him. She hit him again, and again, and again. He started screaming, begging, crying. I turned away, not because I couldn't watch, but because I didn't want to feel anything. I took Lila to the bathroom, cleaned her wounds, checked her arms. She was going to be okay. Behind me, I could still hear him. Then, suddenly, I couldn't. When Marin came out, she was covered in blood. "Is he dead?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. Then she added, "I hope so." And I didn't argue, because I felt the same. He wasn't dead, but I've never seen someone survive a beating like that. His face was destroyed, eyes swollen shut, body barely moving. We didn't call for help. We didn't call anyone. We left him there. We moved downstairs, locked ourselves in, and waited. Days passed, then weeks. Eventually, the house went silent. After 3 weeks, I went upstairs. He was gone. The house was ruined. Walls covered, floors destroyed, everything wrecked. But he was gone. We left soon after, moved far away, started over. Or at least, we tried. I spent years waiting for him to come back. Every noise, every shadow, every knock. But he never did. Marin passed away in 2018, peacefully. I'm alone now, old, tired, and I still think about that day, about what I did or didn't do. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty. But if I'm honest, I don't. Because whatever Elias was, he wasn't our son anymore. And if he's still out there, then I hope someone else finished what we couldn't. I'm going to die, and no one, not even the person I love most, knows about it. Not yet. It started 3 weeks ago, a routine appointment. Nothing serious, at least that's what I thought. I almost didn't even go. I'd been feeling tired lately, sure, but who isn't? I figured it was just stress. Work, bills, life, the same story everyone has. But my doctor insisted on running a few extra tests. Just to be safe, he said. I remember sitting in that sterile office, scrolling on my phone, barely paying attention. The hum of fluorescent lights, the faint smell of disinfectant. Then he walked back in, and something was different. You know that moment when someone doesn't have to say anything, but you already know your life is about to split into before and after. That was it. His name was Dr. Hayashi. He didn't sit right away, just stood there, holding a folder too tightly. Then he finally spoke, and every word felt heavier than the last. There's a mass. Pause. It's malignant. Another pause. And it's advanced. I didn't react at first. I just stared at him. Like maybe if I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe, he'd take it back. But he didn't. By the time he finished explaining, I knew enough. It wasn't just one place. It had spread. Quietly, efficiently, like something that had been planning this long before I ever noticed. He talked about options, chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, months, maybe years of treatment. But the way he said it, he wasn't offering hope. He was offering time, a little more of it, at a cost. What happens if I don't do anything? I asked. He hesitated, and that was all I needed. 6 to 9 months, he said, maybe less. I nodded, like we were discussing the weather. Then I went home. I didn't tell anyone, not my coworkers, not my friends, not even her. Her name is Mira. We've been married for 4 years, together for almost a decade. She's the kind of person who makes small things feel important, who remembers what you said 3 months ago and brings it up at exactly the right moment, who laughs like it's effortless. If I told her, she'd fight. Not for herself, for me. She'd push me into treatments, into hospital rooms, into months of tubes and machines and pain. All for a chance, a small one. And I can't do that to her. I can't let her watch me disappear like that, piece by piece, day by day. So I made a decision. I'm not fighting this, but I am going to choose how the end looks. And that means I'm not telling her. Instead, I started doing something else. I started making every day count. It began small. Breakfast. I've never been much of a cook, but now I wake up early and make her favorite meals. Eggs just the way she likes them. Toast, slightly burnt, because she insists that's the best way. Coffee, already waiting before she gets out of bed. At first, she laughed. "Who are you, and what have you done with my husband?" I just smiled. Then I started leaving work early. Not enough to raise suspicion, just enough to be home before sunset, to suggest we go out. Walks, dinner, drives with no destination. We've started revisiting places we haven't been to in years. The small ramen shop where we had our first date. The park where she once slipped on wet grass and couldn't stop laughing. The quiet overlook outside the city where the lights stretch out like stars. Every moment, I'm storing it, like I can somehow carry it with me, or maybe leave it behind for her. Some days are harder than others. The pain started last week. Nothing unbearable, not yet, but it's there. A dull, constant reminder, like something inside me ticking down. I hide it, carefully. I've gotten good at that, excusing myself, smiling through it, pretending I'm just tired. She notices sometimes. Are you okay? Just a long day, I tell her. She believes me, and that makes it worse. There's something else, too. Something practical. I've started preparing for after. My job isn't anything special. I repair furniture, custom woodwork. But my landlord, Mr. Alvarez, he's been kind. When I told him I needed to reduce my hours, he didn't ask too many questions, just nodded. Told me I could keep using the workshop, no rent. Take care of what matters, he said. Every piece I finish now, every table, every chair, that money goes into a separate account, under her name. She doesn't know about that either. I've been organizing things, quietly. Documents, passwords, bills, everything she might need. It feels strange, preparing to vanish from your own life. Sometimes, late at night, I watch her sleep, and I wonder if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm being selfish, if I'm stealing something from her, the chance to say goodbye, the chance to fight with me. But then I imagine it. Hospitals, machines, her sitting beside me, watching me fade, remembering me like that. And I can't. I want her last memories of me to be this. Laughing, walking beside her, holding her hand, alive, even if it's just an illusion. Yesterday, she told me something. You've been different lately, she said. Better. That word stayed with me. Better. If only she knew why. I don't know how long I have before she notices something she can't ignore, before the cracks show, before I can't hide it anymore. But until then, I'm going to keep going. One breakfast, one walk, one quiet moment at a time. And when the truth finally comes out, because it will, I just hope she understands that I didn't choose to leave her. I chose how I stayed for as long as I could. I was 16 when I made my first real adult decision. Not the kind people celebrate, not the kind you tell your friends about. It was the kind you carry, quietly, for years. I'm the oldest of 4, which basically means I grew up faster than I was supposed to. Our house in Cedar Falls was never quiet, ever. There was always something happening. Someone laughing, someone yelling, someone crying over something small that somehow felt huge. It was messy, loud, alive. And right in the middle of all that chaos was a tiny, fragile creature that somehow held us together. His name was Miso. Miso wasn't just a pet. He was part of the family. A pale, soft little chinchilla with fur so light it almost looked like snow. His ears twitched at the smallest sounds. His nose never stopped moving. And he had this way of hopping straight into your hands the moment you opened his cage, like he trusted you completely. No hesitation, no fear. He belonged to all of us. My younger sister would read to him. My brother would build little cardboard mazes. Even my parents, who always claimed they didn't want pets, would stop by his cage just to say hi. But me? I think I needed him the most. Because when you're the oldest, you learn to hold things in. You don't always get to be the one who needs comfort. You become the one who gives it. And somehow, Miso understood that. 3 days after I got my driver's license, everything changed. I noticed it first, a small thing, easy to ignore. His right eye was watering. Not a lot, just enough to seem off. No one else noticed, but I had just gotten my license, a little plastic card that suddenly made me feel like I had control, like I could fix things, handle things, be responsible. So I made a decision. I didn't tell my parents. I lined a paper grocery bag with one of his blankets, poked small holes in the sides, and placed him inside, gently. He didn't fight it. Then I drove. The vet clinic was about 20 minutes away. I remember gripping the steering wheel too tight, checking the bag every few seconds, talking to him like he could understand me. "It's nothing," I kept saying. "You're fine." I think I was trying to convince myself. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and something else. Something quiet. Something heavy. They took him for an X-ray. I sat there alone, 16 years old, trying to act like I knew what I was doing. When the vet came back, she didn't stand. She didn't rush. She sat next to me. That's when I knew something was wrong. She placed Miso gently in my lap, started petting him, slowly, carefully, like she was buying time. She told me everything. He had been born with something wrong. His teeth weren't growing the way they should. Instead of wearing down naturally, the roots were pushing upward into his skull, toward his eyes, toward his brain. It wasn't fixable. Not really. He was going to die, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I don't remember everything after that, just fragments. Crying, trying to be quiet about it, paying with money I'd saved from babysitting. I put him back in the bag, folded it closed. He started chewing on the edge almost immediately, like nothing had changed. I sat in the driver's seat, didn't start the engine. I had the truth, and I had to decide what to do with it. I could tell them and watch the house go quiet, watch every moment with him turn into a countdown. Or I could carry it, just me, and let everything stay the same. I went to a pet store on the way home, bought eye drops, nothing special, just something that looked official enough. Then I walked into the house. "Just irritation," I said, "nothing serious." And just like that, I changed everything. The house stayed loud, messy, alive. Miso stayed Miso. We gave him the drops. We joked about how dramatic he looked. We kept loving him. And I kept the truth to myself. Weeks turned into months, and something strange happened. He didn't get worse. He lived longer than anyone expected, longer than I had prepared for. And in that time, nothing changed in our house. No sadness hanging in the air. Just love. Simple, uncomplicated, real. Miso passed away just before his 10th birthday. It was quiet, peaceful. We found him in his cage one morning, curled up like he was sleeping. The house changed that day. It got quieter. That night, I told my dad everything. The vet, the diagnosis, the decision. He didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he looked at me and said, "You carried that alone?" I nodded. He sighed, not angry, just understanding. "You were still a kid," he said, "but that was the most grown-up thing I've ever seen you do." Sometimes being an adult doesn't mean having the right answer. It means choosing which truth to live with and carrying it, even when no one else knows. I killed people. Not on purpose. Not because I wanted to. But that doesn't change what happened. And it definitely doesn't change what I am. This started 5 years ago, back when I still thought I was smarter than everyone else. Back when I believed I could bend the rules and come out clean. My name doesn't matter. I don't use it anymore anyway. I was 22, broke, restless, and completely unwilling to live a normal life. The idea of a 9-to-5 job made my skin crawl. Clocking in, clocking out, waiting years just to feel like I was going somewhere. I couldn't do it. So I told myself something else, that I was going to build something, fast. And I found my answer in the worst possible place. I was already using, not heavily, not completely out of control, but enough to know the scene. Enough to know how things moved, who to trust, who to avoid. But I hated the traditional side of it. Meeting people face to face, parking lots, late-night exchanges. The constant feeling that someone was watching, that someone knew where you lived. I couldn't handle that. So I went online. At first, it felt distant, safe, anonymous. I set up an account under a name that didn't mean anything. Started small, selling things I could get easily. Nothing extreme, nothing that felt like it crossed a line. But that's how it starts. You draw the line, then you move it. Within a few months, I had customers, regulars, people who trusted me. And the money came fast, faster than anything I had ever earned before. I told myself it was temporary, just enough to get ahead, just enough to build something legitimate later. That was the lie that made everything possible. Then I met someone, not in person, never in person, a contact, local, reliable. He had everything, things I had never even considered selling before. Psychedelics, stimulants, things with names that made my stomach tighten just reading them. And then there was something else. A synthetic opioid, extremely potent, extremely dangerous. He treated it like it was just another product, like it was no different than anything else. And eventually, so did I. At that point, I had inventory I didn't fully understand. I had products that looked identical, fine, white powders, nearly impossible to distinguish without testing. But I kept them separated, organized, cataloged. I had a system, a spreadsheet, orders, names, addresses, quantities, everything tracked, everything controlled. At least, that's what I believed. Until one night, I remember it too clearly. I was tired, distracted, not thinking straight. I had multiple orders lined up, packaging everything quickly, moving fast, trying to keep up. And somewhere in that process, something went wrong. I didn't notice it then. I sealed the packages, printed the labels, sent them out. Just another night, just another batch. Then I went back to living my life. Days passed, 4, maybe 5. And then a message. It came through the platform, short, direct. Something is wrong with what you sent. I felt that shift immediately. That drop in your stomach when your brain understands before you do. I checked my inventory, weighed what I had left, and that's when it hit me. The numbers didn't match. There was more of one substance than there should have been, less of the other. I went cold, opened the order logs, scrolled back, checked everything. 7 orders, all placed within a short window, all for the same item, and all shipped that night. I checked their accounts. No activity, not for days. That's when I knew. I didn't need confirmation. I didn't need proof. I knew exactly what I had done. I hadn't sent what they ordered. I had sent something else, something stronger, something deadly. I shut everything down immediately. Account deleted, connections severed, inventory liquidated. I converted everything I had into cash, packed what I could carry, left. New city, new job, new life. At least, that's what I told myself. But you don't get to leave something like that behind. It follows you. A few days after I moved, I broke. I still have the data. Names, fragments of identity. I told myself I wouldn't look. Then I did. One by one. Search results. Articles. Not all of them, but enough. 4 confirmed. One of them shared it. That made 5. 5 people gone because of me. I didn't cry, not at first. I just stared at the screen, reading the same lines over and over. Unexpected, tragic, beloved. Words that didn't belong anywhere near what I had done. After that, everything changed. I stopped using completely. I stopped talking to people, stopped answering messages, stopped existing in any way that mattered. Now, I work in a restaurant, back of house. No interaction, no conversation. I clock in, do my shift, clock out. Go home, sit in the dark, play games I don't enjoy, just to pass time. I don't make friends, I don't go out,